What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be comparing living in Florida versus California. All right, so like I said, this video is going to be comparing living in Florida compared to California. If you guys are new to the channel, I was raised in Florida. I lived there my entire life up until I was 26. I moved to California in 2017, and currently I'm living here in Las Vegas, but I just wanted to do a video comparing Florida and California because I feel like the two get compared a lot and they get said that they're very similar. So I just wanted to maybe break away a little bit of the differences that I've observed personally so that I can help anybody out maybe looking to move to either of those states. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe down below. I just go through different vlogs in my life and share my experiences about different topics. So if these are topics that you are interested in, make sure you subscribe down below. All right, so the first area that we're gonna be comparing is the weather. Now we're gonna be comparing Southern California because that's where I lived. I know Northern California, the weather patterns are completely different. California is just such a big, massive state. There's no way that I can compare the entire state to a state like Florida. So we're gonna be working with Southern California, specifically where I lived in Los Angeles. So the difference between the weather is in California, it's more of a dry weather. It's not like here in Vegas where it's like super dry, but it is a drier weather. There's not really any humidity very often. There does come times when there is a little bit of humidity, but nothing really serious. Compared to when you live in Florida, there's humidity practically all year long, especially even during the summers. It's by far the worst because what happens in the summers in Florida is it rains pretty much every afternoon around 3 o'clock for about 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes longer. But what will happen after that is the sun will come out and all of that water will then start rising from the ground. You'll start getting some steam on the ground and you get a ton of humidity that comes out from that rain. Whereas in California, at least where I was in Los Angeles, it hardly ever rained. Like I said, I know Northern California is drastically different, but in Los Angeles, it hardly ever rains. I think it rained twice the entire time that I lived there. So the main difference between the weather, the temperatures tend to be about the same. It definitely gets colder in Los Angeles and it just has more of a drier feel compared to that wet, sticky feeling that you get while you're living in Florida. So the next thing we're gonna be comparing is the difference between the natural disasters that can occur. So in Florida, you have hurricanes that typically can happen. You get little ones here and there. The major hurricanes don't happen too often. It's the same thing with the major earthquakes in California. They don't happen very often, but the frequency of earthquakes is pretty high in California. There's a lot that happen on a daily basis that you just don't feel because they are so minor. But when they do happen, they are ugly, they are destructive. And the issue that I have with the earthquakes is you don't really get any type of a warning that they're going to happen. They just pretty much happen. They do have an alert system that they've implemented, but it only alerts you about 45 seconds to a minute before the earthquake actually occurs. So you don't really have much time to be prepared. So it's important that if you live in California, that you are always prepared. You have an earthquake kit, some water, some dry food, anything that you are going to need in case of an emergency where you actually can't leave. Whereas in Florida, you get hurricanes. And a lot of people in California, when they talk about hurricanes, they get very nervous. They think that they are worse than earthquakes. And while I think they both are very destructive, I kind of give an edge to dealing with a hurricane for the simple reason that you pretty much know it's coming up to a week out. So if you know a hurricane is coming, you have plenty of time to prepare your house. You have plenty of time to pack up things. You have plenty of time to leave the state, leave the city, evacuate, whatever you need to do in order to prepare. You know it's coming and you can actually get out of the path if you need to. If there's a major hurricane coming that's going to be very destructive, you're able to pack your car or pack a bag, whatever, and fly or drive somewhere to be out of the path of the hurricane. Whereas in case of an earthquake, you really don't have that luxury. You just have to kind of take cover and hope for the best if a major earthquake does happen. So personally, for me, I would definitely give the edge in the advantage to Florida just because you have the ability to prepare. And just to touch on some of the other natural disasters is Florida, yes, you do get some flooding once in a while. It's not anything too crazy like you would see in like New Orleans because they are below sea level, you know, so they had a lot of flooding over there. In Florida, there is flooding when it rains a lot, when it storms a lot, when there's a hurricane, there is flooding, but it's not anything too severe. Down in South Florida it is, because they're a lot lower to the sea level. Miami is practically at sea level. So if you were to go down there, yes, you would have more issues with the flooding, but where I lived in Orlando, it wasn't too bad. The other thing in California is you do get fires. As you guys have seen, the major California fires that break out due to practically not getting a lot of rain. What happens is when these fires break out, it's very hard to actually put them out because it's so dry. There's not rain, there's not that moisture in the air to actually put them out. So sometimes these fires take weeks to actually get out. They do a lot of destruction in the process of doing that. And what also happens is when it does rain in California, one of the other natural disasters that can occur are mudslides, and then you can get a lot of flooding in California as well, just because a lot of the cities are not built with the infrastructure to handle the rain, to handle the heavy water, or all of these other elements that come with the mudslides and all of these other natural disasters that can occur. So overall, I would definitely give the edge to Florida, like I said, just because you have the ability to prepare for these disasters. All right, so the next thing we're gonna be comparing is the cost of living in California compared to Florida. This is gonna be an obvious one for many people. Everybody knows California is expensive, so obviously the cost of living is going to be higher in California. Not only is your property tax typically going to be higher, your insurance is going to be higher on your property because of all of the natural disasters, again, that can occur. If you are in a flood zone, if you are in a mountain area that can get a fire, you're gonna have to get earthquake insurance pretty much. I mean, I know a lot of people don't carry it in California, but you really should have it just in case. So ultimately, that is going to cost you a lot more money right there, right up front. You also have state income taxes over there, which are the highest in the nation. The car registration is some of the highest in the nation as well. I believe that they use a system that goes off of your MSRP of your vehicle, similar to what they do here in Nevada. So overall, the cost of living is a lot more expensive in California. There's a lot of little taxes, a bottle tax and a plastic bag tax and gas taxes, and there's even areas that are now implementing like a climate change tax at restaurants, I guess. So overall, like I said, you're gonna be paying a significant amount more every single year if you're gonna decide to live in California. The other issue that I will say is when you're deciding if you're gonna live in California or Florida, sometimes the wages will get some people. They'll say, well, I'm gonna be making $100,000, and I only make 60 here or 70 here. And ultimately what happens is because you have all of these taxes, you have the higher cost of living, ultimately you don't typically end up making any more money than another place. I've had a friend who took a job in California. He did it because it was gonna be a lot more money, but after paying, almost $3,000 a month for his apartment and the taxes and everything, he really wasn't making any more money. It was a more stressful job. It was more management. It was dealing with more people. There was just overall more stress, and he really wasn't making any more money. So ultimately, after the year he was there, he ended up moving back to Florida and going back to his regular job because ultimately he wasn't making any difference in income. So it was really not even worth doing the transfer in the first place. So just be aware that sometimes people say, well, you can make a lot of money in California, and you can, but you have to have a low cost of living to actually offset that. Otherwise, that high cost of living is going to make it equal out for the most part for many people. So with that being said about California, obviously Florida is going to have the advantage here as the cost of living. There's no state income tax. Your car registration when I was in Florida was typically $45 a year. Did not matter what kind of car you had. So some people in California, they end up paying, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to register their vehicle. Whereas in Florida, it would be a flat $45, $50 every single year, no matter what. So the one thing I will say about Florida is a lot of people say that the wages are kind of stagnant. They're not really at a livable level for many people. So what a lot of people are doing is they're getting some sort of a second job. They're getting some sort of a second income. And honestly, this is not unique to Florida. This is currently July 2019. This is something you're seeing all over the United States. Rents are going up, cost of living is going up everywhere you live. And ultimately it's because the dollar is becoming weaker. So I know this is a little bit off topic, but just be aware that the wages in Florida are not entirely the best. So you may have to get up a second job. You may have to have, a second income, a partner, somebody else with you in order to actually live a good life in Florida, a good quality of life. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna choose Florida. The next area that we're going to compare is the bugs that you'll see. This is a popular topic, not only just bugs, but just wildlife that you would see in general. Anytime I would talk to people in California, they would think that Florida is just gators everywhere and snakes everywhere, and it's just a big swamp and it's just nasty. And that's very far from the truth, to be honest. When I lived in Florida, I never saw an alligator except for one time actually out in the wild. And this was when I worked at a hotel. We had one pop up because we were across from a lake. But besides that, I never saw any wild gators. Yeah, I saw a couple snakes here and there, but they were mostly just garden snakes, harmless. They don't bite, they're not poisonous. So those aren't really the big things to be worried about. What you need to be worried about in Florida are mosquitoes, especially during the summer, because they come out when it's like hot and wet, and they come out at night, and anytime you have lights on, they're going to be attracted to the light. So I remember I went back to Florida last month and I visited after not being there for almost a year, and I went in July and I was getting bit up like crazy from the mosquitoes. So they are very annoying. They do carry some disease. You have to be careful with it. You don't want to itch the bites. You want to actually spray if you can prior to going outside, just to avoid getting bit by those. The other nuisance that I would say in Florida is love bug season. There is a ton of love bugs that pop up during love bug season, and they will just get all over the front of your car. If you're going outside to go for a walk or anything, you're going to come across a lot of love bugs. And if you don't wash your car immediately, they will actually destroy the paint on your car. So it's important that if you are living in Florida, be aware of love bug season, and make sure if you have these on your car, you get them off as soon as possible, because the longer you leave them there, the dead, bug guts, whatever, that are on the front of your car, the sun is going to bake on it, and ultimately it's going to leave a stain or even take some of the paint off your car if you don't get it off in time. It's also important that you wax your car, you take good care of your paint, so that if these do happen, you can get them off and avoid any type of damage to your car. So I mean, those would really be the main insects, wildlife that you really have to worry about in Florida. And we do have little things like lizards, and then we do have some palmetto bugs, which are kind of annoying, but they're not nearly as common as, say, the mosquitoes or the love bug type things are. So you don't really have to worry about lizards. They're relatively harmless. But let's get into California wildlife. So in California, what I experienced was there is definitely snakes. Anytime you go on any hikes living in Los Angeles, there's pretty much signs everywhere you go that there may be rattlesnakes present, there may be poisonous snakes present. And I did see probably about 3 or 4 snakes while I lived there. Now, I didn't ever see a rattlesnake, thank God. I did go to Runyon Canyon once, and I was coming down the hike. And when I got to the bottom, there was a lady that said, "Oh my God, did you see the rattlesnake up there?" There was a baby rattler hanging out, and I was like, no, I didn't even see it. But she said that I pretty much walked like almost right where this snake was. So luckily I didn't see it. I didn't get bit, and nothing happened. But it is something that you do need to be aware of, that they are prevalent, they do exist, and they are relatively, I wouldn't say common, like you're not going to see them all over the place, but anytime you're going hiking in the hills and stuff, you do run the chance of definitely seeing snakes. And me personally, I hate snakes, especially like the fact that there can be poisonous snakes. In Florida, yes, we have the garden snakes. Yes, we have like water moccasins and stuff by lakes. And there definitely is poisonous snakes you have to worry about. But I feel like in California, they're much more common. Whereas like you're doing an outdoor activity, you're going for a nice hike, and next thing you know, you step on a rattlesnake. Like you're not really gonna have that in Florida if you're walking around. Typically, like I said, they're gonna be garden snakes. They're not gonna bite. They're gonna actually run if you come near them. And rattlesnakes don't typically attack either. They don't do that unless they feel threatened, or if you accidentally step on one, definitely they would bite you. But just having that chance of being able to step on one when you're just like out enjoying nature, and God forbid if you're by yourself or something happens, like you could be in a very bad scenario. So just the fact that those are there is a bit unsettling for me. And the other animal that I came across in Southern California quite a bit was coyotes. These come up in the mountain areas. I actually came across a few of them when I was driving from Thousand Oaks down into Malibu. So it was like the conservation area. There wasn't really a whole lot of buildup. I went through the mountains, and there were some houses and stuff, and I just happened to see a pair of coyotes while I was there. But honestly, besides the coyotes and besides the snakes, I don't recall really seeing any crazy animals while I was living in Southern California at all. So if you're okay with those, then you'll be fine. Like I said, the coyotes are not like super common, especially if you're gonna live in like West Hollywood, you're gonna live in like a populated area, you're gonna live in like Venice, Santa Monica, you're probably not going to see a coyote. It's very rare, but just be aware of the snakes and those type of animals and the possibility that if you are hiking, you can come across a coyote. The next topic we're gonna get into is the outdoor life, the recreational life, and just overall the activities of people. So California is definitely a much more active state. There is a lot more places to walk to. There's people riding bikes, there's people on scooters, there's people running on the beach. The beaches have, you know, outdoor workout areas. There's a ton of gyms. And overall, California and Los Angeles people, most people have like an image to keep. You know, they need to be fit, they need to be in shape, whether they're acting or they're doing YouTube or social media, whatever it is, they need to be in shape. So overall, definitely people are a lot more active in California. You have tons of activities in Los Angeles. You could be literally swimming and at the beach one day, surfing, and then in the afternoon you can drive up to Big Bear. If it's during the winter time, you can ski and snowboard. There's tons of hikes that you can go on. There's tons of places you can ride your bike. You can go mountain biking. There's a ton of outdoor activities that you could do if you're living in Southern California. Compared to if you're in Florida, you have to keep in mind, Florida is completely flat. It is mostly swampland. There's no real hills. There's no real hikes that you can go on. You can walk through like nature preserves that are like here and there. There's quite a few parks throughout Florida just because there's so much greenery. But overall, the main thing in Florida is the beach and a lake. So if you're not into water sports, you're not into swimming in a lake. Like me personally, I don't really want to swim in a lake because there could be gators, water moccasins, snakes. I'm just not really I don't like the lake. The lake water is nasty. It smells nasty. It's dark. You don't really know what is in there when you jump into the water. So me personally, I don't really like that. And the beach is nice, but depending on where you live in Florida, you're not always gonna be right at the beach. And sometimes you wanna do things that are different. You don't always just want to go to the beach. I know it sounds nice if you live in like the Northeast, or you live somewhere where maybe you don't have a beach. Like here in Las Vegas, we don't have a beach. We have Lake Mead and other things, but it is nice to have the beach, I will say. But overall, comparing the beaches now, I would say the beaches in Florida, definitely the water is warmer for the most part, especially if you're gonna be on the west coast of Florida. The water is usually in the 80s in the summer, so it's very warm, very tolerable. It's super clear on the west coast for the most part. Once you get into Sarasota, Tampa, Clearwater, Naples, those areas are beautiful, and you can actually go in the water and enjoy the water. The sand is really like fine, like sugar powder, beautiful. East Coast, the water's definitely a little bit cooler. The beaches are, you know, the water's not as clean. It's kind of like a murky color compared to over on the West Coast. It's very clear. So in California, the beaches are beautiful to look at. They are very scenic. There's a lot of cliffs, mountains, rocks. They're just very beautiful to the eye. But most people don't actually go in the water because it is so damn cold, and the water is really dark. You can't really even see into the water and see what's in the water. So overall, I would give the upside on this to California just because there is so much more variety, whereas in Florida, you literally have lakes and beaches, and that's really it. There's a couple other things that I'm probably not touching on, but for the most part, California has way more outdoor life. And the last thing that we're gonna touch on really quick is just the overall politics of the place. I don't wanna get too much into the politics for this because I'm not really too familiar with a ton of politics. I know the very surface level stuff and then a little bit below, but this is the obvious one. Obviously, California is a hell of a lot more liberal. You know, they have a lot of more legal things there. They have a lot more taxes. Just overall, they have a much more liberal mindset as far as their policies, whereas Florida is still very conservative. Yes, they do have medical marijuana now, but that ultimately was like tough to even get passed down in Florida. It took, I think, 2 or 3 votes to actually get it in. And when it first got in, they wouldn't even let you do the flower. So, you know, it's one of those things where depending on where you might swing, this might be a big thing for you. Like some people, if they're very big on amendment number 2, Florida's probably gonna be a better place for you because in California, you really can't exercise that amendment. So overall, just be aware that they're vastly different in that aspect. I think everybody knows this for the most part. California is very famous for being always blue. So Florida is kind of like a purple state. It goes back and forth, but for the most part, it is a red state. But that's it for this video, guys. If you want more comparisons comparing Florida and California, let me know down in the comments below. Maybe I can make a part 2 to this video. I know this one was super long, so if you're here, I want to thank you for watching this entire video. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you're not yet subscribed, smash the subscribe button down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.